Yeah, let's start off with this last topic for this particular unit, family. And the topic is changes in the concept of motherhood and fatherhood. Changes in the concepts of motherhood and fatherhood. I don't think I can or I have to explain this topic any further. In that case,
Yes.
let's get started with this right away. When we talk about the changes in the concept of motherhood first, we talk about motherhood first and then we move on to fatherhood. Societies have clear cut expectations of what mothers should be like, right? In modern industrial societies, mothers are expected to devote themselves to their children. It is assumed that there is okay in modern industrial societies. Talk in if you talk about our society, it's multiplied by two at least. It is assumed that there is a mothering instinct that a woman will always want and be able to raise her children. A part of this a reason a factor that we could link to this is because it's a woman who bears a child, or in other words who gives birth to a child. The society usually expects her to raise the child as well, and hence this the mothering instinct point, right? In fact, motherhood is a social construction. Bang, there you go. We are talking about social construction over here again. Motherhood is a social construction, right? Now, when you talk about motherhood being a social construction, it's probably how societies have turned this out to be like, right? And I mean, apart from bearing a child, I think a child after a bit can be taken care of by a father, but it usually doesn't really work like that. We get that, right? Now, taking this further, it is society which decides what mothers should be like and singles out or stigmatizes those who do not conform. You've seen how things are like, especially, I mean, the things that we're talking about over here, they're so evident. They are a part of what we get to hear every now and then. A mother is expected to take care of all the child's risk, I mean, to take care of all of the child's responsibilities minus the financial part, in our part of the world especially, right? And if a mother chooses not to, she is usually singled out or stigmatized. In other societies, it is not always taken for granted that the biological mother will raise the children. For example, grandparents or the close kin may adopt the children of a young unmarried mother as well, right? In the UK, changes in the concept of motherhood have been influenced by the changes in pattern of childbearing. Now, we're talking about how there have been changes in the concept of motherhood in the UK, and how this has been influenced by changes in the patterns of childbearing, right, or giving birth to children. To start off with, there's been a decline in birth rate from around 30 live births per 1,000 people in 1900 to around 10 in 2010. Number two, a decline in family size over the last 50 years from an average of 3 children to 1.6 children. Number three, an increase in the average age at which women have their first child. Number four, births outside marriage now account for nearly half of all births. Now, the point over here is, do you know what? These these demographic changes eventually do end up affecting the concept of motherhood. And over here, since we're talking about UK, we do have statistical support over here, right? Taking it further, the smaller number of children has, with other changes, led to families and societies more widely becoming more child centered. Now, the fewer children you have, the more time and money you have to dedicate to your small family, right? I mean, there are societies where there are a lot of children. I wouldn't say where there are a lot of children, parents do not really care about all of their children, but I think this does make sense when you talk about, especially when you talk about allocating your financial resources. The smaller a family is, the more chances there are of an individual child getting a bigger share out of their parents' money, their capital, their money again. Yeah, which places,
Yes.
which again places. Why is this not working? Let me figure this out. So yeah, we're back. We're talking about how smaller families have led to a more child centered approach towards children. You know what? The fewer children you have, the more expectations the society has from mothers to be good mothers, spending a lot of time, energy, whatever the resources they have on their children, right? Some type of mothers have some types of mother have been thought of as straying from the stereotypical good mother role. One example is a working mother who would know this more, who would know this better than us people in our part of the world. A misconception that people carry in our country is that a working woman is not the best or the perfect mother. And we have so many examples of women, so many mothers who've actually proven this wrong, right? So taking it ahead, growing number of women do both paid work, often in demanding occupations, and carry out the traditional expressive role, and face great difficulty trying to meet the often conflicting demands of the two roles. Of course, this is there are, I mean, we wouldn't I wouldn't want to deny these conflicting demands. For instance, if a child falls sick, the mother is expected to take a leave and stay back home with the child, right? And what if the mother's job doesn't really allow her to take that leave? What if she has a very important meeting to take care of that particular day, which would eventually affect her job and her career too? Anyways, there is a long running debate over whether mothers, especially those with preschool age children, should go out to work or work full time. Some people think that being a good mother means that the children must be the mother's priority. Now, you know what? Let me give you all an example. Isko dekho. I've highlighted some people think that separately. You know, a typical mistake that students make is, if I say Mr. XYZ is writing an answer, it'd be like, mothers are expected to keep their children as their topmost priority. You know, if you write it like that, let me re-say that. Mothers are expected to keep their children as their topmost priority. In that case, it looks like you're saying it. You don't have to be that direct. You could go like, some people think that, or there are many people who believe, or many sociological commentators. Who's asking you to name them? Who's asking you who said it? You just act smart. There are different views or some sociological perspectives. I'm hinting you towards functionalism and the new right perspective over here. I mean, that's when you know a lot of social, not a lot of sociology. That is when you are sound when it comes to your perspectives being applied. However, यहाँ पे आप देखो, some people think that being a good mother means that the children must be the mother's priority, and therefore it is wrong for a mother to go out to work. Nevertheless, many women do work, and there are a range of options available for childcare. Now, we're talking about the range of options being there for childcare by others, although these can be expensive. For instance, if we talk about these range of options, we do know children can be taken care of by a relative, children could be taken care of by a nanny, children could be taken care of by nurseries. We get this, right?
Yes.
Britain has less childcare provision than most other European countries, and very few companies and organizations have workplace nurseries, right? Getting used to being with different people can help a child to become more sociable and confident. That is the good part many people never mention, right? Getting used to being with different people can help a child to become more sociable and confident. Being with a group of children at a nursery or similar institution is preparation for school, and children learn about how to get on with others. Remember, uh, when you get into A2s, you'd study this in the unit education that you are tested on in paper 3. But you know what? According to this functionalist Parsons, the education system, especially your schools, they play the role of a bridge between your family and the wider society. Because at home, everyone is their child's favorite. We're talking about mama's boy and papa's princess. As soon as you step into the education system, you realize you were just your mama's boy and your papa's princess jab tak aap ghar pe the. And the explanation that we have, the point that we have over here, is supporting that. I mean, the sooner you make a child used to with other people, the easier it would get for the child to adjust into the education system and later on in the society. If you still don't get this, you know what? Children who've already attended preschool groups, I've forgotten what you call them, the preschools, yeah, the preschools or Montessori's, they are, it gets easier for them to adjust into their schools when they step into schools, right? A child who has been looked after all the time by the mother, father, or other relatives may find going to school a more difficult transition. This is exactly what I just said, right? So we are talking about, what we're discussing over here is the changes in the concepts of motherhood and fatherhood. We've just discussed motherhood. Let's quickly hop on to fatherhood over here. How is it that the concept of fatherhood has changed today? Do you know what? Number one, there was a time then fathers, the only responsibility or the expectation that the society had from a father was to be a, you know who, breadwinner, right? However, today things have changed. I mean, a father used to be a person who used to bring back money home. The mother used to use, I mean, this happens very often in our part of the world, in our country. The father is used as a sign of terror when it comes to disciplining children. Abbu ko bata dungi, wait, let your father come back from work, right? Now, moving on, if you talk about the concept, or if you talk about the change in the concept of fatherhood, the traditional view of the father is as the head of the family. This is a traditional view, that the father would be the head of the family and as a breadwinner. The father's role as breadwinner usually meant that he was away from the home for most of the time at work. His main role with regard to his children, after providing materially for them, was to discipline them when required. That's exactly what I said. And guess what? We all already do know this. So, after providing materially, he's used to discipline children if and when required. This limits his role. The limits of the father's role and the division of tasks by gender was set by men, but supported by many women. Changing nappies and feeding a baby were seen as not men's work, and men who liked taking care of children might be thought of as feminine. This created a real dilemma for men who wanted to have a strong relationship with their children. I'd like to highlight that one. A strong dilemma for men who wanted to have a strong relationship with their children. Those who broke these restrictions faced being stigmatized by other men if it became known that they did women's work. Because remember, typically all of this was referred to as a woman's job, a woman's role to be played within a family. The separation or alienation of fathers from their children was increased by being required to impose punishment. One, that poor person is not at home. Number two, you use that person as a symbol of terror, trying to discipline your child. Let's just say with good intentions, but then don't you think this is going to affect the bond that a father would want to have with his or her child, with his child, and the child would have want to have with his or her father? Yeah. Do we get this?
Sorry, sir, I got disconnected. I couldn't hear the last.
Yeah,
sentence.
what I'm saying is, if the father is used as a sign of terror, trying to discipline a child, if a mother keeps on, if other family members they keep on saying, "Wait, let your father come back. Wait, you did this. We'll let your father know." That would result in, that would of course be a hurdle when it comes to the bond that a child and a father should be having, right? Now, the
Yes,
position
right.
of men in modern societies has changed. There you go. The position of men in modern societies has changed in recent years, and this has had effects on how men behave as fathers. Some of the Now, see, the position of men has changed, and that is, of course, going to translate into how men behave as fathers. Clear? This, because we're studying this under the heading of fatherhood, right? Taking it further, some of the changes that have affected the position that men held in the society, which has, like discussed a minute back, affected the concept of childhood. Number one, let's talk about the decline in manufacturing industry. This has affected men from the working class in particular. The decline of manufacturing industry and a rise in service or tertiary industry has resulted in a lot of male unemployment, right? Remember, a change in the position of men in general affecting their role as fathers, right? Taking this ahead, number two, abuse of women and children within families by men has become much better publicized and condemned. Now, the way women and children used to be abused back in the past, it has been publicized and condemned now, which has again brought in a change in terms of the position that men held. Number three, the importance of men within families is questioned. More women can support families alone, right? There's been a we've seen how there have been more women who are independent, and they are doing quite an amazing job supporting their families financially and otherwise all by themselves. The rise in divorce rate, right? And more of petitions being filed by women, more of divorces being initiated by women. What does that reflect? That reflects economic independence. That reflects the amount of confidence women hold in themselves, that they'd be able to take care, that they'd be able to look after themselves and their family all by themselves if required, right? So the next point is the importance of men within families being questioned, right? The next point, feminism has questioned traditional ideas about masculinity, questioning traditional ideas about masculinity, suggesting that it is responsible for abuse of power, war, and damage to the environment. Now, these have been a few factors that have affected the position of men in the society in general. And this has, of course, translated into a different concept of fatherhood. And alongside this, the emergence of a new man. A man who is a new man. I'm sure everyone by now does have an idea about what I mean by when I talk about a new man. But for the ones who don't, if you still don't know what a new man is, the idea of men being loving, caring, sharing, supportive, showing support when it comes to household responsibilities and chores, right? Now, moving on. In the late 1980s, there was much talk in the media of new man who was supposedly anti-sexist, gentle, sensitive, and fully involved in bringing up children. It seems that many people, men and women, approve of the idea of a new man, but many couples find it hard to put it into practice. Like, there are again many sociological commentators who do, I mean, not that they don't support the idea of a new man, but they question if it actually exists beyond theory. I mean, it's nice hearing about a new man, but the question is, has this idea been translated into practice? The idea of a man being anti-sexist, gentle, sensitive, loving, caring, sharing, and have a substantial and having substantial contribution towards the upbringing of the children. Taking it further, some men are critical of the part their own fathers played in their upbringing and are determined to be different. More fathers are playing an active part in the emotional side of child rearing. Let me highlight this. Critical of the part their own fathers played in their upbringing. Next, let me number them. That would make it easier for us. Number two, number two, more fathers are playing an active role in the emotional side, an active role in the emotional side of child rearing and spending more time with their children. Number three, readiness towards spending more of time with their children. However, bringing up children is very expensive, and this often leads to men working very long hours and limits the time they can spend with children too. I mean, we discussed how men were willing to bring in a change and wanting to make this bond with their child stronger, at the same time being cautious, being careful that if they reduce the amount of hours they put to work that actually brings back money home, they might not be able to provide their child with the future or with the lifestyle they want to, right? Taking it ahead, fathers are now expected to be involved with children more often and in more ways than before. So the key terms are more often and more ways than before. We're talking about the involvement a father has with their children. At the same time, they're often expected to still be the main provider, often, right? Which again cannot and should not be ignored, right? Arguably, many men as well as women take on a dual burden of both the traditional role of the gender and aspects of their other gender's role. A dual burden, this term initially was coined by a very prominent feminist, Anne Oakley, the idea that which was supposed to be for women, and the idea being that women are expected to work at home and outside home, which does doubles the amount of work that they end up doing. Today, with the pass of time, if men are willing to make their contribution towards household affairs, towards the upbringing of the child, and at the same time, the society expecting them to be the main provider for the family, this would eventually put them under this dual burden as well. Do we all get this? And I hope this helps. Take care of yourselves. Stay happy, healthy, safe, and protected. Stay humble. Spread positivity. Spread smiles. And take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you so much
Hafiz.
for
Thank
this.
you.
Hafiz. You're welcome.